All right, so good afternoon, everyone. It's Nicole from HBCU 20 by 20. We're really excited to host this event with Amgen, so Biotech 101 with Amgen. Biotech isn't necessarily a new industry, so it's been around for years, but we're proud to partner with Amgen. They have a lot of opportunities available, especially as the industry continues to evolve. But we're here today just to have this conversation. So if it's okay, we can dive right in. What I would like to do is just have each of the panelists introduce yourselves and what you do at Amgen before we get started into kind of the question portion. And we'll make sure that there is a Q&A section for the students who may have questions, whether it's about Amgen or our Biotech Fellowship. But we want to get to learn a little bit more about our panelists, their journey, how they got to Amgen, and just, how you all can become a part of the Amgen family. So with that said, we'd love to start with Ms. Harris.
Hi, my name is Laura Harris, and I am part of our Operations, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging team. So what that encompasses is I do external outreach, which is why I'm here today. We also institute best practices, capabilities that further our efforts in recruiting diverse talent, in retaining diverse talent, and also just building a better community and culture around what we do at Amgen. And so I'm so excited to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you, and I'll pass the baton to Claude.
Sure. Thank you, Lara. My name is Claude Richardson. I've recently joined the Amgen Talent Acquisition team just this January. My job title is Diversity Talent Scout. You might also see Diversity Sourcer. And what I do is that I work to ensure that our hiring process is as inclusive as possible. I do this in a lot of different ways, but by influencing our talent attraction and events strategy, by working within different systems to manage candidate applications, and by attending events to find Amgen's future employees. And so I will leave it right there, and I'll pass it off to you, Tanya.
Thank you. Tanya Towns, and I've been with Amgen for 13 years. I am the senior manager for operations, diversity, inclusion, business performance. So I know we've focused some on external, how we're inclusive in our hiring, but in my role, I look at the people, culture, I look at how do we sustain it in the business model. It's part of our enterprise goals, our functional goals, and how it interconnects and being inclusive leaders. So accountable for that big picture, and it's worldwide within operations. So.
Thank you so much, just each of you, for introducing yourselves. Before we dive into questions, I wanted to know, would you all like to present kind of like an overview of Amgen?
Yes, I've shared with you the deck.
Awesome. So I'll get that shared now. Where's my present? Play from the start.
And I'm probably going to skip around a bit, but I think this is the cornerstone of what we do at Amgen. Our mission is to serve patients. We're very privileged and fortunate to be able to cater to those suffering from serious illnesses. And so at Amgen, we have created different products, medical devices to aid those suffering from serious illnesses. And so just a little bit about what we do. Next slide. Can you switch slides for me? Nope, doesn't want to progress. So, well, I'll keep talking while she catches up. So Amgen is one of the world's leading independent biotechnology companies. We're a pioneer in science and using living cells to make medicines, right? We help invent the processes and tools that you'll see throughout the global biotech industry. We've unlocked the potential of biology for patients suffering from serious illnesses, as I stated earlier. And we have advanced human genetics that unravel the complexities of disease. And we've also done a lot of work in the space of genetic engineering, and we modify living cells to produce drugs called biologics. Next slide, please. And so here's just a quick overview of kind of what that biotechnology looks like as a world-class capability. You have genetic validation, biology first advantage, investing in innovation, protein engineering, global clinical trials, biologics manufacturing, successful launch track record, and global commercial infrastructure. Next slide. And so this is the heart of where we come from. Our function within Amgen is operations. And so we have these 5 cornerstones. We focus on engineering, process development, global supply chain, quality, and manufacturing. And I know looking at this, some of you might be looking at your resume or your background and wondering if you're a right fit. And I just want to emphasize that, you know, your career progression is all about transferable skills, right? And this is just one part of a broader wheelhouse, and there's lots of capabilities and opportunities with Amgen. We're just highlighting what we do within operations, but we are bringing to you the broader scope of all the opportunities. But today we're just focused on operations because that just happens to be the function in which we live. Next slide. And so, you know, the background of what we do is based on our values, right? We are science-based. We compete intensely to win. We create value for our patients, staff, and stockholders. We're ethical. We trust and respect each other in order to get this work done. That requires that we ensure quality for the patients in which we serve. None of this work can be done without working in teams. You have to be able to collaborate, communicate, and be accountable for the work in which you're trusted to do. And so that brings us to, you know, our diversity commitment, right? It's about our differences and how that creates better science. And so I'm just going to go over this last slide and then we can get into the Q&A for today. But we have several focus areas of diversity, right? At the heart of everything, it's our people and creating a great culture and community, and then sustaining those best practices to ensure that we create the staples for the future of our organization, right? The conversation about diversity and the demographics will continue to change over the years. And for us to be able to maintain that, we have to sustain those best practices and tools. And so that's just a little bit of background about Amgen, what we do within operations. And with that, I want to open it up to any Q&A that we have today, because I want to hear from you.
Thank you so much for going over that PowerPoint, for kind of just sharing a little bit more about the different ways and the operations teams work. So from manufacturing to research and development, I saw like a lot of just different opportunities there. So for the students in attendance, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat, but I can lead with some questions in the meantime. My first question just for the panel would be, can you all share a little bit more about what kind of skills are needed to be successful at Amgen? What are you all looking for?
Who wants to go first?
I'll take that first. I know Laura mentioned transferable skills. That's huge at Amgen. I can't even explain. So whether you come in as a senior scientist or you come in as an engineer, you still have a pathway to either be a specialist or a manager or in a VP track. Kind of giving you that example, I have an agricultural science background. I've actually been an interim director in information security, right? It's that critical thinking, your process, right? I've actually launched enterprise initiatives, changed how we handle complete documentation for regulatory bodies within the organizations and changed that for the organization in our 100+ countries, right? How do I problem solve? right? How do I actually get things done? And what are the behaviors that I use to do that? When we look at advancement, we look at how well our performance is, but also what are the behaviors that we're doing to move that needle. So if you're willing to kind of let you know, I started in quality, moved to R&D, worked in privacy and legal, moved into IS and data management and information security, have moved back into HR and started the business performance, right? And started with a hard science background. When I'm kind of thinking about those transferable skills, if you are open to when the door opens, you can walk through that here at Amgen. I'll give you my learning track.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that we're probably going to dive into that a little bit more because I'm curious about how all of that links together and how important it is to also try different things in different functions. Claude, how about you? What are some skills you believe are needed to be successful at Amgen?
It's a great question. And the main takeaway that I would want anybody listening to us today to understand is that each position is different. It's not a one size fits all thing. And so you might have heard Tanya mention skills like problem solving. We align our skills that we're looking for by the types of positions that we recruit for. Like Lara was talking about earlier, we have functions like operations, R&D, corporate functions, and that's how we align those skills. So problem solving is a skill that we look for in a lot of types of positions. It could be within IT, finance, it could be within R&D or operations. We look for skills like communication skills, we look for organizational skills, we look for project management skills, we look for the ability to be a leader and to forge new paths or ways to do something like Tanya said earlier. And so I would say that there are a large skill set, a large set of skills that we're looking for. And when you think about the type of position that you would like to do when you apply to Amgen or any other position, then I would say look at the job description. All the skills we're looking for are listed in the top of the job description with the qualifications at the bottom.
Thank you for that. And Laura, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I think, that we've grounded on the transferable skills are important, but I also think advocating for yourself is also important, right? I think knowing your worth and what your capabilities and being able to speak to those aspects of the work that you've done is highly impressive when you get into that interview room. So I think, having the baseline of, do I have the transferable skills? Is this a role that interests me, right? You're going to be spending 90% of your time with these people and doing this role, right? It should be something that you're interested in and have a passion for. But, can you articulate why you're the right person? Can you articulate confidently, why you should be chosen over the other candidates? I think is detriment. It's very important to this process.
Thank you for that. So thank you to each of you for providing that. We heard, some of those like skills that we hear, the problem solving skills, but I like that that you included advocating for yourself as a skill, because I think it's a skill we don't ever really talk too much about, but it is just as important. My next question for you all is, in what ways do you all see biotech shaping the future? We are still kind of technically in the middle of a pandemic, and we saw how the biotech industry played a huge role in kind of advancing where we are today, and hopefully where we'll be in the next few years. But what is Amgen's role kind of like in biotech shaping the future, and what are some of you all's thoughts on that?
I can start. I think the next generation of biology and major biotechs will be that artificial intelligence. I think those applied sciences, people who are able to automate services. I think that's, one of the big outcomes of the pandemic was, being able to do things electronically, fastly, and get the same services that you would, right, traditionally. And so I think that's where the future of the company is going, and most biotechs are going. They're looking for people who have those skill sets, so that if that is an area of interest, I think that there's a place for you in the future of biotech.
Thank you for that. Same question for Tanya.
Thank you. I'd also add in digital strategy capabilities is where we're advancing. Throughout most of the organizations, we've even have a new function that we've expanded just with that purpose, right? So, and I'm going to go through with those transferable skills as well, right? So I think being mindful of how the company needs to evolve over time. We want to represent the customers that we serve. It's important that we serve our patients every time that our product reaches our patients. So what can we do to ensure that? And then how do we ensure that we're on the cutting edge of science, right? That we can leverage all the knowledge and information that's available to make informed business decisions. And that's through, data management, information management, and mapping that as well. So I think those are kind of areas where I say, when somebody wants to learn a little more, I think that's a key learning opportunity. I'm plugging y'all.
Dropping jewels, dropping jewels. Thank you for that. And how about you, Claude?
It's a great question. When I think about how is biotechnology going to shape the future, I just think about the research that's being done. I have the DNA strand behind me because biotech companies are mapping the human genome. Lara and Tanya talked about using automation and digital strategy. That's one area in which employees at Amgen use those skills. And I think the result of that is that eventually we'll see medicine become much more individualized. A lot of patients will go to a doctor and try out different medicines to see which one works the best for them. But by knowing more about the human genome, by studying and testing the medicines that we create, eventually we'll get to the point where the treatments will be for an individual. How's your genome made up? What do you need to get better? And so that's really exciting to me. And that's what I think that the big outcome of all this research is going to be one day.
Thank you for that. And that's really futuristic where medicine is intended specifically for one individual. So I like that, especially for the students thinking like, about going into biotech. That's really, really cool.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that. My next question, and this is why I said I'll come back to Tanya for this, but how did you end up at Amgen and what's keeping you there? So I think you said you've been there for 13 years. Yeah. So
okay, so how did I end up? Let me give a preference. When I said I started off in food and beverage, I actually worked for another company, Anheuser-Busch. I'm fine, it's there. I was actually a brewmaster and ran their biologics and their ag science lab. I retired from there and really started going into banking. Wanted a different type of market after 15 years in that area and realized, nope, I like the sciences, and I contracted as a consultant. And Amgen hired me as a consultant. They were going global with how they were doing international quality, and we're looking at kind of taking that corporate model into a global model and harvesting the knowledge from all the sites and all the international quality sites. And I worked on that project. I enjoyed working for Amgen. I liked how they collaborated and being a thought partner. I felt like they were innovative in their approach. And they were at, hey, you want to come on board? And I was like, I don't know. I like the fluidity of consulting. But they were like, you have the ability. I love project work. I love creating a change in organization, change management. And they were like, you'll have that opportunity. And as I explained, yes, I did have that opportunity. So I came on after that. And what keeps me there is the people. I'm going to tell you, we've got great people. There's sometimes I think work is challenging in any company. You're stretched a little bit, sometimes uncomfortable, but then you kind of push back. But hands down, I'll say our team, if we're all doing, it, we're all in it, right? We all have the passion to serve the patient. I see that consistently. We might have different perspectives on how to do that, but we're able to voice our opinions. Disconfirming information is just as valuable as confirming information, right? So I think that's important. And if you choose to be active in your career planning and advancement, and be an advocate, as Laura said, for yourself, right? You can move from function to function to function. You can raise your hand and say, you know what? I've always wanted to learn more about science. Or is there a small project? I know I'm not a data scientist, but I know it's important to me. Is there a small project where somebody can help me so it's not as much risk, that I can learn more? And you have that opportunity to do that. So you're not just defined by where your historical education or where you matriculated from, really by what you have an interest in, because we all evolve over time. I'm the epitome of that. What I thought I would be doing when I was in my undergraduate or master's is completely different from what I'm doing now, but I'm happy in what I'm doing.
Thank you for sharing that. That almost sounds like a book, From Bruce to Biotech. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Someone said that was poetry. It really, really was. Laura, how about you? How did you end up at Amgen? What was your kind of like journey to Amgen?
Well, non-traditional, right? I'm a journalism major by trade. Went to school for journalism. I worked at ABC as an intern. I did some freelance work at a radio station, doing my own radio shows. But it was just a downtime in the industry, and I really couldn't get that traction that I was looking for, but I had a skill set. And so I worked in travel for a little while. I made my way over to NBC Universal, working in the recording industry, doing residuals and tracking our international agents. And then I met a coworker, and she was like, you should sign up for this contractor firm. And I said, okay. And so I did. And lo and behold, they got me a role at Amgen. And I was working on communications for our field sales teams. I was working with the business units, crafting, business letters and communications, leveraging my journalism skills. I got a call, that contract ended, and I got a call, and it was, just grace and timing. It was literally a 10-minute call, which created a 10-year plus experience at Amgen. I was able to get a full-time position and leveraging my skill sets. I'm a organizationally savvy person. I'm a high communicator. And so I was able to leverage those skill sets into a role that's propelled me to where I am today. And I'm happy to have called Amgen my home for 10 plus years now.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that either, y'all. So I'm learning so much while y'all are learning. So that's really, really cool too. And okay, so thank you for that. And then Claude, I want to kick it over to you. I know that you started in January. So what have the past 4 months or so, been like for you?
It has been a whirlwind, to say the least. I ended up here because I have a career working in hospitals and biotechnology firms. So I really love the idea that we talked about earlier, in that, I'm not a scientist, but everything that we do helps a patient indirectly, right? If I'm a recruiter and I find a scientist who's going to work in R&D here, then that might be the person who creates something new, or creates an innovation that helps our patients in the end. I started my job search in December, just a few months ago, and I found this opportunity on LinkedIn. I reached out to somebody that I used to work with at another company because I saw them post about this position that I'm in now. I was referred, did the interviews, and was selected. And so I started in January, like I said, and I stay here because I get the opportunity to work on challenges and, challenges that I like. Diversity and inclusion, recruitment, events, those are not easy things to do, but I like those challenges. Those are where my skill sets lie and where I can make a big difference. And so thankfully, I work with great partners, like Tanya said earlier. It's all about who you work with because you spend so much time with them. And you're looking at two of my close partners right here, Tanya and Lara. They have been instrumental in getting me up to speed, sharing information, and helping me learn the Amgen way. And so those are some reasons why I stay here and how I ended up at Amgen.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And I think that what I liked out of hearing your story is like that importance of networking. So seeing something on LinkedIn, reaching out to someone you knew directly and saying, hey, I'm interested in this opportunity. So I know that we speak to the HBCU 20 by 20 community a lot about the importance of networking and also having a LinkedIn account, y'all. But it's so important. So I know I see some questions both in the chat and also kind of like in the Q&A, and also students, if you feel comfortable raising your hand and coming off camera or off the mic, please do so. But the first question I see kind of like here in the Q&A, I'll start. Do you all have internship opportunities for undergraduate students?
Yes, we do. We have roles that are open every year. Unfortunately, our opportunities for 2022 have closed out because you market the prior year for the current year. So, with this programming that we've partnered with HBC 2020, we will be helping prepare people to participate in our 2023 programming that we have coming up very soon.
Thank you for that. Another question I see is, what unique approaches or technologies distinguish Amgen from other competitors?
Do you want to take that one, Tanya?
Yeah, I would say we are cutting edge, so we don't limit. We use virtual, we have modeling, we have a whole side of our business that focuses on technology and looking how it can integrate with the business. As I mentioned, our strategy. So we have a full data science team, we have technology device teams, full business arms, not just small departments. For all aspects. So what I'll say, what distinguishes us is that we value it. We've put money behind it, positions, leaderships, vice presidents, executive directors, all levels to support advancing our science and integration with technology. And when we think about that, we look at also with that internship question, we have viable products. So when you're with an internship, postdoc, whatever your co-op, intersemester, we do them all. You're actually having a project someone else in Amgen that's a full-time staff would be working on, right? So you're working on that project, and we look at all levels. We need fresh new minds. We said diversity, right, leads to innovation in science and better science. That is our core statement in our model for diversity. It's integrated in our business. So when we're looking at that, if you can think it, we use it. If you haven't thought it, we're trying it. AI, a decade ago, we were looking into that. So just know that, that is the uniqueness, I think, with Amgen. We value, and it's part of our core business model.
Thank you for sharing that. And I like that you placed a special emphasis on, all of the new technologies, all the devices we have a real business kind of like dedicated to that specific one versus as Amgen kind of operating as one. But I like the kind of like the illustration you painted of that. Because it is different. So thank you for that. The next question I just want to ask you all, if someone has little to no experience kind of like in the life sciences or in tech, How can they stand out as a candidate for some of the opportunities available at Amgen?
I could tackle that question. It's a great question. And I think that there's two parts to it, or at least two parts that I'll answer. Um, the first is that how do you get into a biotech company if you don't have a lot of experience? And so the way that I think about this is that there's a few different entryways. The first is to apply to an internship, rotational program, or entry-level role that's actually designed to teach the incumbent the necessary information to be successful in that role or the career path. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Second, you should know that biotech companies are always hiring, like even during the pandemic. If you identify a role that you want but do not qualify for, you might be able to train for that job or one that's just like it. That's what people do when they go to college, right? They get a degree in an area that they may or may not know information about. And you can also do that with boot camps and certifications. What that does for you is um, gives you an opportunity to do case studies or learn situations that are going to be transferable, like Tanya said earlier, to you when you go to apply to that position. I think somebody said it earlier, there's also on-the-job training. If you have a background in marketing, for example, and you really wanted to work within um, operations, like as an engineer, you have access to that department when you work for a company like Amgen. You can email somebody, you can find a mentor, you can do some work to get in a situation where you can learn on a small project or at that job that you're currently in while you're doing the marketing. And then the second part of the question is, how do you stand out as a candidate? I would say that is very important. There is no perfect candidate, but I will say, sorry, if you hear drilling or banging in the background, they're putting solar panels on the house today. Very exciting. But you, as a candidate, do not want to stand out in the wrong way, right? You want to manage your impressions. And you can do that by ensuring that your resume, LinkedIn, and other documents, like a cover letter maybe, are polished, they're typo-free, they're consistent, and they're indicative of what you're looking for so that your first impression is on point. When you speak to a hiring manager or a recruiter, I keep in mind that the job that you're interviewing for indicates that that company has a problem. If you do not have a lot of experience, your job in these conversations is to position yourself as a solution to that problem, right? You want that person that you speak with to walk away feeling like you would know exactly what to do if you were placed in the situation that they're currently in. You can do this by referring to your transferable skills if you don't have a lot of experience, right? If I wanted to apply for an IT help desk position and they ask me if I've ever worked as an IT field analyst, and I haven't, what I would not do is say I haven't worked in that position before and leave it there. I would think about the experiences I do have. A lot of people have had other positions. So let's just say, as an example, I worked at Walmart's customer service center. I would highly recommend you think about what is it that an IT field analyst actually does. They solve customer problems, they answer phone calls, they escalate tickets, right? If you worked at Walmart, you could talk about, hey, I was a customer service analyst and I took the complaints of customers in person and on the phone. While I was in that job, I called the manager if there was a situation that became above me or something that I couldn't handle, right? And so what that interviewer will walk away thinking is that this person might not have been an IT analyst, but they have 5 of the 6 qualities that we're looking for. maybe we can easily train them on the last one. And so if you don't have the experiences that they're looking for, it is so crucial, just like Tanya said, to highlight the experiences that you do have and show that you would be a solution or why we should pick you over anybody else.
Thank you so much just for providing that insight. I think that oftentimes we forget that the skills that we gain really can be transferable as long as we paint the narrative in the way that it needs to, just to show that we can accomplish a job. So thank you just for sharing that. The next question I see is from Patrick Lockhart, who is a biomedical data science student at Meharry. Patrick's question is, what projects could I work on currently as a student and in the future, I guess, as an employee, just to stand out?
Well, obviously it would be hypothetical, right? We don't know what's going to be posted later on this year, but I can tell you that the projects that interns get are real business projects, right? You'll be working on real work that will lead to better science, better innovation, that will meet our existing goals at the time in which you enroll as an intern. So it'll be a real application of the learnings that you're getting at your university in the real world. And so you can take that experience, build that into your resume and say, hey, I did this internship. This was the result of my project. I led, I managed, or, I innovated, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we will build the skill sets and tools and you so that you can be successful as you, take the next phase into full-time work as, going into the workforce. I hope I answered your question, Patrick.
Let me clarify just one extra point, Laura, on that. I'm not sure what your specialty is. It says biomedical. So if it's looking for something across, we have our process development as well as some R&D opportunities. So our data scientist students, do the genomic, the protein database, proteomic, as well as global supply chain on the business practical, manufacturing sides. So it could be any aspect of, I would say, within the operations and research and development functional areas, and even potentially even in our commercial area, looking at the pull through from the data. But it would be a real life business.
That's right. If I could add to those two answers just a little bit more, they're right. Data scientists are in all business functions at Amgen, from HR to the biomedical functions as well. And I think the parts that are consistent in all of those jobs are the management and understanding of data, right? So if you know how to manage spreadsheets, if you know how to use systems like Tableau and Power BI, if you know how to make dashboards, then those are transferable skills from function to function. And so if you think about how to prepare for a career in data science, especially at Amgen, then it would be mastering those core skills and then seeing what your interest is. What function would you like to do that in?
Thank you for that as well. I see some more questions coming in. I'll start with Ms. Chandler's question. She says, good afternoon. Can you speak a little bit about being a Black employee at Amgen and what is Amgen doing to ensure diversity and inclusion is happening within the company?
Well, I can start off. I think we all have our own vision of that. Well, I could say that the first fruit of those labors is that we're here talking to you, that we've partnered with HBCU 2020 to ensure that we have a pipeline of diverse talent and that diversity is of all ranges, right? Because there's different demographics about diversity. I think as a Black employee, we have a community and a network in our Amgen Black employee network, where we get a support system, we can network and we can communicate, share our authentic stories and lean on each other. We have great mentorship programming, career development programming right now that's focusing on ensuring that our diverse leaders have the support and mechanisms that they need in order to be successful. I'm not going to be pretentious in the sense that we have everything all figured out, right? We, like everyone else, are on this journey of discovery of what diversity, inclusion, and belonging means within our company. And we're building those best practices, capabilities, and tool sets so that we can ensure that we have a culture where everyone thrives, no matter of your background. But it's nice that we have that built-in community and network within the organization, so you can see someone who looks just like you and can immediately sympathize or support you, because they too are in the same situation. And we all come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different education, but we've all landed at the same place. And so sharing those unique stories is helpful to our career path and our journey at Amgen. Tanya, Claude?
Wow, that was good. The else, I was like, wow. Yeah, I don't have much to add except that, we know we've dedicated a whole team within an enterprise team and a team in every function that is ensuring that we have the broadest funnel. We want our Amgen culture and our staff to reflect the customers we serve. That's our high level, right? So it's not a number. I always tell people, like, we don't have a number. If it evolves over time, we want to expand as our customer base evolves over time. We really strive in educating and informing people about biotech opportunities. As Claude has spoke to, his role is really out there scouting, bringing more visibility, awareness, looking for the broader diversity. We have that in our TA inside of our business, so we're committed. And I always say, it's like when somebody comes on, we ask you to raise your hand and be a champion, right? We ask that you reach out if you're part of our team and someone's onboarding, so that they feel included into the culture and we foster that sense of inclusion and belonging, right? So.
Thank you. And Claude?
That's right. What I would say about that is that it's nice for me to see that we do have Black employees at Amgen. There is a community, like Tanya and Lara said, but the reality is that there are less Black employees at Amgen than the communities which we live and work in, like Tanya was just mentioning. So what we're doing about that is that you can tackle that problem from a few different ways, right? My whole job is focused on hiring diverse populations and making sure that their experiences and that we include different communities that we haven't networked with as much in the past. The important part, and I think the one part that differentiates Amgen from other companies, is the belonging piece. A lot of companies talk about or only focus on diversity and inclusion, but the belonging piece is so important. It's like the icing on the cake. And diversity, inclusion, and belonging affect business concerns like culture, attrition, profits, etc. So it's definitely important to do. There is a strong interest and a lot of energy around it at Amgen. And so that's a little bit about, our experiences and what we do about that here at Amgen.
Thank you, you all so much for sharing that. And, just to add in, HBCU 20 by 20 is fortunate to be partnered with Amgen. And I'd like to just talk a little bit more about kind of our Biotech Fellowship, because I know that I saw a question in the chat that asked us, Amgen offer fellowships for doctoral students. So I'd love for you all to answer that, but I'd also love to talk about our fellowship program that's coming up, and the applications are closing very, very soon. So, but I would love to hear, do you all have fellowship opportunities for doctoral students too?
Yes.
Okay.
We do. I don't know if Claude wants to expand on that, but yes, we do.
We do have fellowships. They are similar to what I've seen in the industry. We focus on students who are going after their doctorate or their PhDs. And so those fellowships are usually within functions like operations and R&D. And so we have different dates in which each cohort opens up, and we have an application period, just like we mentioned a little bit earlier. And so we have one that is specific to this group. And what we would like to do is make sure that everybody who's on this call gets their application in. We would like to consider people from this cohort and have them eventually join Amgen. All of our early in career opportunities, like our internships, are geared around formal and informal events. They have opportunities for networking and professional development. We do on-the-job training, and usually each of these projects, like the internships, are 10 to 12 weeks long. The last thing I'll say about them is that they usually include project-based learning and also experiential learning.
Thank you for that. And I'd like to just share kind of the HBCU and Amgen biotech application just so that you all can see it. I'll make sure to drop the link in the chat, but applications close this Sunday. This program is curated for students who attend HBCUs. So whether you're in a doctoral program, whether you're an undergrad, we'd love for you to consider applying. The application is really short, simple, and sweet. We do ask that you, though, take the time to thoroughly answer the questions. We're limited to the amount of fellows that will participate in this program. It is a paid fellowship, so that's something else just to keep on your radar. I know a lot of fellowships may or may not be paid, but we're really looking for students who are enrolled in life sciences, math, computer science, or technology programs. All are welcome, but if you have like that as a background, we want you to really commit to that. But the applications, like I said, due on April 17th. So we actually extended the deadline. So no more extensions after this. But we'd love for you all to get your applications in if you haven't, and we'll make sure that you have that. So just in regards to kind of when we talk about what Amgen is doing about diversity and inclusion, a big piece of that is creating a first of its kind type of program like this, where students can learn directly from professionals on what they need to do to be prepared for internship, fellowship, or full-time roles with Amgen. So I just, I have to plug. So I'll plug that in just real quick. But I see we have some more questions. The next question I see is from Mark Randallson, who's a biomed student. He said, can you tell me about the organizational structure at Amgen to understand more of what type of entry-level jobs to target for a student after graduation with no biotech workforce experience? That was a really dynamic question. I think that what Mark might be asking is, what are the different entry-level opportunities if you're not in biotech? So if they came in, could they come in? And Mark, maybe you want to kind of like type in the comments, maybe just a little bit further about what you mean. But is your background in science, or if a student isn't in science or technology, what kind of roles are there at Amgen for them?
So I'm going to kick it off and then pass it over to Claude to do the deep dive. But, entry level means that you don't have prior work experience other than internships and or fellowships. So the expectation that you have a lot of real world experience is amenable to the role, right? Like we have to have a fair comparison there. So I think leaving university and going into the workforce, we look at your skill sets, like what are those transferable skills? Are you a good communicator? Have you led any projects? And what were the results of those projects? I think that's the kind of focus areas in which we hone in on. And I think having a background in chemistry or biology, I think those are bonuses, but they're not necessarily a requirement to apply. And I think as you look at job descriptions, I think you should change your vision just a little bit and think outside of the box, and don't put yourself in those tight spaces, because it does inherently cut you off from other opportunities. So I think yes, I think they do look for people who have, chemistry or biology, but that's not the only people who get in, right? If you look at Tanya's story, if you look at my story, if you look at Claude, we're all working at a biotech, and we're not necessarily biologists or chemistry majors. So I think the opportunities are endless. You have to apply and make sure that you feel like you have the skill set to apply, but it's not a requirement in all cases. And Claude, I'll hand it off to you.
Lara is exactly right. The organizational structure of Amgen is that slide that we shared a little bit earlier. There is an R&D section of the company that researches new molecules and living organisms. There's an operations part of the company that scales it up. They do manufacturing, they do supply chain and shipping. And there's a commercial part of the organization. They work with doctors and hospitals to inform them, what is it that our products can do for your patients? And they've helped them to figure out how much do they need and how they're going to get it to them. Lastly, there is a corporate functions department, and that includes everybody else who supports those actions from the other departments. That's usually people like government affairs, IT, HR, because the things that those functions work on are not individual to commercializing a drug or manufacturing it. And so when you think about those large activities that the company does, we need people who have a lot of experience in all of those areas, but we also have opportunities that are designed for people with no experience, literally 0 years of experience, up to maybe 3 years. That's considered entry level. And so when you think about those opportunities, and they look like maybe an account manager in commercial, that could be anything with associate, like manufacturing associate or data analyst, assistant, that sort of thing. And it goes all the way up to positions that are regular level, management level, senior level. And so the way I look at entry level positions at a company like Amgen is to think about, which vertical do you want to join? Which part of the company are you going to support those activities? And what can you do from a beginner standpoint? How can you help out? How can you start something? How can you keep track or organize something for that team? So hopefully that helps you out a little bit when you do your job search.
Thank you for that also, Claude. We have 2 last questions in the chat. So the one I see here is, how was the interview process at Amgen? What is that like?
I can talk a little bit about that. Typically, we want to do a 3-step interview process. The first step is when you talk to a recruiter or somebody in HR. Ideally, we would advance you to the next step where you speak to the manager or somebody on their team. And then lastly is a final round of interviews where you might speak to future stakeholders, people that the manager works with, or like a panel, including the manager themselves. And so after you go through those interviews, which occur after your application, by the way, um, you would hopefully advance to the offer step where you hear from recruitment once again, and we let you know that there's an offer for you to join Amgen. This is how much money we'd like to pay you. This is what you will be doing, where you can accept it or deny it. And if it's a position that you would like to accept, then we start our onboarding process. You join the company with some paperwork. You have to do some, we have to do some background checks and that sort of thing. But as long as you clear everything, then you start, you get trained up, and you start in your position. And so ideally, that's how the interview process works at Amgen. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Tanya or Lara.
Yeah, I would say that the interview process is, it can be intimidating, right? You're interviewing somewhere new for the first time, but I think that goes back to being confident about who you are, your worth, your experience, being able to articulate your background. I think that everyone should do a prep session with a family, a member, a peer, take the opportunity to drop into those interview prep sessions or resume prep sessions, whether that's on YouTube sponsored by your university or even by HBCU 2020. I think those are great opportunities for you to flex that muscle. And then just don't get discouraged by your first no, right? Your first no is your journey to your first yes. And so continue to do that interview process and hone in on that muscle, and you'll see your growth over time. I mean, I think the best advice I've ever gotten in my career is like, go to that interview. Even if you don't feel like you're going to get the role, go to that interview, because it's the process, right, that builds that muscle and makes you more confident the more you interview. And so you can speak better about your capabilities, you can turn down that nervous meter and really be present and put on, give a great first impression, which is all an interview is. It's your first impression. It's not the end all be all. It's the beginning of your journey. So I think that's my 5 cents.
I'm going to add a little change in there as well. So I want to highlight at the HBCU Biotech Fellowship, we have interview roundtables, and we have that. So don't forget to sign up. First.
Good plug.
The second is, if you know that you didn't present yourself to your best capability in the interview, something happened. I always say, do the work. I've had, actually this year, someone reached out to me after I interviewed them, and they were like, you know what? I didn't really speak about this, this, and this. And here's some additional interview background, like people to reach out to if you're still open to considering me. And I sat down with my recruiter and we followed them. I said, bring them back in. Let's do a panel, right? And they actually got the job, to let you know. And it wasn't a great interview, but they had to do the work. If they didn't reach out to me, give me the thank you email, give me additional insight. Here are a few more contacts. Here's my, I'm not, when you're looking at any interview, there are hundreds, right? So how do you distinguish yourself in that cover letter? How do you distinguish yourself in the follow-up? And if I don't have it, I have people who reach out to me and say, hey, do you mind talking to me about, why I didn't get this opportunity? And yeah, that's a mentoring opportunity. I can say, we use a rubric, and on this rating, these are some opportunities that we felt were 25% core in this role, right? And this might be a barrier when you want this level. And those are great conversations, but do the work. I think everybody said that. Laura even do the prep sessions, but I'm also saying do the follow-up work. I find very few people that are managing or in this line of work that won't respond back to you if you ask.
It seems old school, but it's an oldie but goodie. Following up, sending that thank you for your time, having a good opening letter specific to the role, like why are you the person for the role, not just in general, these are my background and this is why you should pick me, but no, like what am I going to do on that role? How am I going to execute if I get that role? That's what they're looking to see in that cover letter.
and I'm telling you, I have people who followed up on LinkedIn after the fact. They're like, I got another role I found in Amgen. Can you look at it? Is this the good one? And I look at it and it's a good one. I'm like, you know what? I know that hiring manager, the recruiter, I interviewed you. Let me give them a good referral.
I like that. That's how that networking really works in real life, you all. So I know that we've come to time, but I'd like to just ask each of the panelists, how can the students follow up with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just as my name is stated there, Laura Harris. Happy to connect with you.
Same here. I will
Same
put
here.
my LinkedIn in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do that too. I have to pull it up.
And while I'm doing that, there was a quick question. I just want to let them know we do offer international students internships.
Oh, okay.
And our internships are, we have internships that are even virtual if people are not able to move. Okay. We have some as well.
That's really good to hear too. So, well, I want to just thank Claude, Laura, and Tanya just for taking the time out to speak with us on today. I know that you all, it's morning time for you all still. so just so you all know, I think Amgen is headquartered in Thousand Oaks, California. I got that right. Yes. So they're on the West Coast. So they woke up early for us. We really appreciate you all for taking the time out to speak with us. HBCU BioTech Fellowship, hbcu20x20.org/Amgen, an opportunity for you. But beyond that, there are plenty of other career opportunities available at Amgen, and we'll be sure to share them. But thank you all so much again for your time.
Thank you for having us.
you.
Apply.
Well, I'm gonna press stop on the recording, and everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.